All right. Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's having a good Thursday morning. All right. It's time for update dose number 2 of my writing retreat. Yesterday I shared with you all a little bit of a history lesson about why and how these writing retreats started and how they're kind of my opportunity to put my back up against the wall and focus my energy and my attention and my time on knocking something out in a really concentrated, intense way. And I wanted to start today's update and video. It's still early here, so if I sound tired, that's why. I apologize. I wanted to start today's video by telling you a little interesting story about something that a contractor of mine, Sarah, she knows who she is, contractor of mine revealed to me. This was last year. One of the things that she said to me that is very true that I've started recognizing myself. She goes, "Tim, you're like a phoenix. You will take something that you've built and then you burn it to the ground and you rebuild it." And I don't know if she meant it in a good way or a bad way. It was just a matter of a fact way, right? But as I reflect on a lot of the stuff that I've worked on over the years, it's very true. I will build a thing and then I'll sit on that thing for a while and then I start lighting matches and I burn it down and then I rebuild a better version of that thing. And so much of everything that I work on with my business and the eLearning Designers Academy and my book and all of that stuff, I view it very much as an ongoing, iterative project. It's not static. It's not one and done. You don't build it and you're done with it. You build it and you test it and you see how it goes and works, and then you iterate on the idea. And for me, at least the way I work, the way I iterate on an idea isn't I don't build upon the thing that I created, because in my head it creates a Frankenstein version of that thing. I take the lessons that I learned from the thing that I created and then I burn it down and then I rebuild it, and it's a better version of that thing that I created, right? Now, whether that's right, wrong, or otherwise, I don't know. I don't have time to figure that out. But for today's video, for today's update, I wanted to share, with all that in mind, I wanted to share what my plans are for this writing retreat. I'll share in a future video a little bit about what goes into when I schedule these writing retreats, because they're not by random at all. There's a whole process that I go through that leads up and builds up to when I'm ready to do a writing retreat, and I'll share about that in a future video. But for today, I wanted to talk about this. I'm burning it down. This is dying. Okay, my book. This is the second edition of my book, the eLearning Designer's Handbook, right? I wrote and published this book in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. There's a whole lot of stories there, I can tell you all. And this has been one of those ongoing projects. I wrote the first edition of it. I don't have a copy with me here right now. I wrote the first edition of it, 2016, 2017-ish, right? And then I rewrote it for the second edition, and I burnt that first version down and rewrote the second one. And my goal with originally writing this book was to provide new practitioners a really solid understanding of not just it was to provide a solid understanding of the e-learning development process with a little bit of instructional design put into it. But one of the things I've learned about myself in this whole philosophy of being a phoenix and burning shit down and all of that is that the more I talk about a thing, the closer I get to what I really want to say about it, right? And sometimes I don't really know what I want to do until I have attempted some version of it, right? So the first edition of my book, as I reflect on it, it really wasn't what I wanted to do. It felt like it was what I wanted to do at the time, and that was fine. It was great. And then the second edition of my book, this felt like, oh, this was the thing I really wanted to do. But as I've reflected, as I've talked about it, as I've thought about it more and sat on it, I realized it really isn't what I wanted to do. So now I'm moving into the next iteration of this, where I get closer to, I think I'm getting closer to what I really want to do with this. And the thing, not big revelation, but the thing that I've realized is that I don't think I'm doing a good service by trying to talk about instructional design and e-learning development in the same book. Because here's the thing, I think too many people out there, especially new practitioners, we conflate instructional design as a practice with e-learning development as a skill set, right? As a thing for building a specific type of modality. And what's interesting is, there's this great saying, I don't know who coined the saying, but I'll say it for now. And if you know who it is, put it down in the comments. Not all instructional design is e-learning, but all e-learning is instructional design. All good e-learning requires instructional design, but not all instructional design is e-learning. And so if I'm going to talk about instructional design, it doesn't make sense to talk about it just in the context of e-learning development, right? It almost requires its own separate book. And so the whole point of this writing retreat, and I'll share a lot more about what I'm working on too in the future, but the main goal of my writing retreat is that I'm rewriting this, but I'm rewriting it into two separate books. One that will be the Instructional Design Handbook, and then this one, which will focus purely on e-learning development as the e-learning development or e-learning design handbook. I haven't figured if I want to go with design or development. That's a separate topic for a separate day. And so that's my primary goal. Now, there's a little bit more nuance to all of this because for those of you that know me, I don't do things frivolously. I'm very intentional and thoughtful and methodical about everything that I do. So this is something I've been thinking about. I have a visual here. This is something I've been thinking about for the last 6 months or so. My plans have been for a long time to separate my books into two books, the instructional design book and the e-learning book. And then my plan is to offer accompanying off-the-shelf courses for each book, right? An instructional design course and an e-learning course, e-learning development course. And for a long time, I wasn't sure, do I write the books first and then use the books to inform the course, or do I write the course first and use the course to inform the books? This one became an easy one to solve. I realized that it doesn't make sense to write the books first and then use those to write the courses. Because again, with that thing that I shared with you earlier, the more I talk about a thing, the more my ideas evolve on it. And so the risk of starting with the books and writing the courses is I'll write the books, and then by the time I get to the courses, my ideas will evolve, but then I'll be kind of screwed because these have been published, right? I don't want that. So I realized I got to start with the courses and use that to inform the books. So that was the first thing that I realized leading into this writing retreat. But the second thing that I realized too, for whatever reason, I was stuck on this idea that I needed to write both of these courses first simultaneously and then use them to write the books, right? And one of the things that I really struggle with as part of my creative process, that's a whole nother thing I'm going to talk about in a future video. One of the things I really struggle with is this idea that everything has to happen simultaneously, right? Like as much as I do believe that I try to be as iterative as I can, I try to realize I try to come to fruition the full realization of what I'm trying to do, right? But that's not possible. I can't do all of the courses and all of those books simultaneously because then none of you would ever see it until, 3 years from now, right? And so what I decided I'm going to do is instead of doing it like this or like this, I'm going to do it like this and then like this. So I'm going to write the course and the book simultaneously for instructional design, and then write the e-learning course and book simultaneously later this year for e-learning development, right? So I share all that to say that this writing retreat is effectively me writing a book in a week. That's a huge undertaking, writing a book in a week. You think most people spend months and months and months working and writing on a book. And it's true that it has taken months and months and months, but I've spent most of that time thinking about the book that I want to write and envisioning the book that I want to write. And now this is the execution of it. That's all going to happen in a week. And that's a separate video that I'll talk about too, is about how my creative process works, because a huge part of my creative process in a weird way, involves this procrastination period where I'm just sitting and thinking, a lot of thinking, so much thinking, until the point where it has to boil over. And then that's when the writing retreat happens. But I'm going to save that for a future video. And so that's what I'm working on. I'm writing a book in a week, and I'm locking myself in a hotel room to do it. And I'm not concerned about it. Like, that doesn't overwhelm me by any means, because like this book, this was written in like really 2 weeks. The first edition was written in 2 weeks. And will I write this whole thing in a week? Probably not a whole thing in a week, maybe like 90% of it, because I have a lot of it ready to go. But a huge chunk of the work will get done in this week. So I want to know what you think about that. What are your impressions? I don't have a deep, well, actually I do. I want to know what you think about that. Now, let's leave the crazy stuff for those of you who are still around here. See, this is what I'm going to do. This is my trick to keep you to stick around. The more you all watch, the more I'm going to talk about the more interesting stuff towards the end of the video to keep you around. So if you're still watching, thank you. What I want to end this video with, because, what I want to talk about, part of my intention with giving these updates is I don't want to just be sharing exactly what I'm working on, but I want to connect with you all on a little bit more of a deeper level and share some of the stuff that I don't feel like I normally get to share in my YouTube content or on LinkedIn. And so it's still early here. It's early in the morning. And I'm curious to know, here's what I want to end the video with. I'm curious to hear, do any of you have, I hate to use the word ritual because it sounds so woo-woo. But do you have any evening or morning rituals that you use to set intentions for your day, right? Like, one of the things I'll share with all of you is that I have dealt with just, for almost 10 years, like crippling anxiety, like anxiety that you can feel. Do you ever have that? Do you have a feeling where the anxiety feels like this sometimes, where you almost feel out of breath? I started getting that anxiety. I didn't start experiencing that anxiety until I started leading a team of people when I was working at GoDaddy, and there's a whole lot that went into that. And when I left GoDaddy, there was a short, beautiful period of time in 2019 when I left GoDaddy in April 2019, and then before 2020, there was a short period of time where that anxiety kind of dissolved, and then the pandemic hit, and then, it's just been, feels like life is a gut punch all the time, right? The reason I share that with you, and the reason I ask that question, is one of the things that I've done to help me recenter myself, because when you have that really bad anxiety, I don't know if this resonates with anybody, when you have that ongoing anxiety, you feel uncentered. Does that make any sense? You feel uncentered. And when you're not feeling centered, it's really hard to focus on your North Star, whatever that might be, right? I hope that makes sense. So one of the things that I do, for what it's worth, one of the rituals, going back to my original question, one of the rituals that I have for myself is that every night before bed, right before I'm about to fall asleep, to help calm my mind down, to get it to stop racing, is I will think about everything that happened during the day. All the people I encountered, the people I helped, the people who asked questions, the people I spoke to, something that happened in my day with my partner or my family or even a neighbor. And I will reflect and identify all the good things that happened, all the things I'm thankful for, right? Because when you're feeling that anxiety, it's so easy to just focus on all of the negative stuff that's happening, right? So I will sit there and I will think about and reflect on all of the good that happened that day. And then what I do is in the morning, when I'm waking up, right before I wake up, before I open up my phone and start doom scrolling, because we all do that a little bit, right? I'll think about what I want to accomplish for the day. Like, what do I want to be thankful for at the end of the day? When I go to bed that next day, what's going to make me feel like I did something good or I got something done? I'll think about that in the morning. What kind of day do I want to have? How do I want to show up for myself and for my business and for my students and on LinkedIn and for all of you and for my partner and for my dog and for my parents or whatever? I'll think about all of that and I'll set those intentions for the day. And I find that those two little rituals And you're almost like speaking to yourself in that way, or setting that out into the universe. It helps. It helps you stay grounded and helps you find your center again so that you can focus on whatever that North Star is. And so leading up to this writing retreat, one of the things that I do is I really double down on these rituals. Like this week, I have been exercising more than I normally exercise. I do gym in the morning, and then I've been going on hikes in the evening, and I really focus on eating really, really well and no junk food. And that's really hard because I love my junk food. But all of these things are helping getting myself into the most productive headspace that I can be when I feel good mentally and physically, so that I can then show up for what I need to get done, which is, rewriting this shit, right? Okay. I really wanted to keep this less than 10 minutes, but I kept going. So if you're sticking around, I really appreciate it. Let me know down in the comments what your routines are. And if you haven't, if you want to stay up to date on my little daily updates here, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you'll get alerted when another one of these goes live. All right. Otherwise, tomorrow will be Friday. So I'll share an update about like what I'm bringing with me. We'll see. And then Saturday, I'll share a video once I get settled in my hotel room and where I'm headed and what my setup looks like. All right. Hope you have a good day, everybody.